This is a racial justice issue. This is an equity issue. This is about all of us. This is not going to change unless everybody in this room takes responsibility for changing it. But we are just talking about basic tenets of democracy.
Jonah, would you be able to explain what is the Freedom of Information Act and what is the deal with the Freedom of Information Act and the courts?
The Freedom of Information Act is also commonly referred to as, the state's public records law, right? It is the law that allows anyone to file a request with a public agency, a public body. When state lawmakers laid out what is a public body, they listed out, any executive, administrative, legislative body of the state. They left out the word judicial. And so courts have subsequently interpreted that to mean that the entire judicial branch is not subject to FOIA.
Briana, could you explain a little bit about how the courts are important to people in their everyday lives?
The courts play an instrumental role in people's lives. I think it's easy to feel like their impact is a little invisible if you're not directly court involved. Everyone has a tie to the courts in some ways.
Thank you for that answer. Representative Tarver, you obviously have a bill on this. This is obviously important to you. Would you mind expanding more on why it would be so important to be able to FOIA the judicial branch?
Government, as a general matter, should be open to the people who vote individuals in office and pay taxes. Just as a general premise, to exempt accidentally or purposefully an entire branch, a co-equal branch of government, and just run into incredible roadblocks. Some of those things involve the juvenile detention center, right? And whether or not children are being abused and things along those lines, right? We're talking about what's happening to children when we're paying for the individuals to keep them in care. And I cannot get information about that. That is a problem. So that was the impetus behind the bill originally. I'll say this, you didn't ask it, but the biggest hurdle we have right now is the courts have a very, very good and well-known lobbyist.
I think that there are two veins of the work that I've been involved in that have really highlighted the importance of the judicial branch being subject to FOIA, my involvement in pretrial fairness work. But we need to be able to understand at a trend level what is happening to people. Another vein is work that I have gotten a chance to be a part of involving juvenile justice. I would say that a lot of the work that we have done has involved just trying to get information about what is happening. We were appointed by the Cook County Board president to fulfill that role, but how much of that time have we been able to actually do that versus have to beg for the JTDC, the Office of the Chief Judge, to give us data?
I want to highlight this really quickly for anyone who's unfamiliar with these two programs. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but here in Cook County, there are two electronic monitoring programs. One is run by the sheriff's office, and because it's run by the sheriff, you can FOIA for information. You can file a Freedom of Information Act request. And the other one is under the Chief Judge's office, and because it's the judicial branch, you can't.
And so you end up with data that is incomplete, and you sometimes question, like, what can we do with this? What can we say with this? Because it's not as comprehensive as if you could FOIA it.
And to not be able to get that information. And fundamentally, I just believe co-equal means co-equal. Co-equal doesn't mean that, two do one thing and another. These two have this limitation and this one doesn't. That doesn't seem like co-equal to me.
Where does the Judicial Inquiry Board fall?
And it's actually even a more explicit. So there is explicitly in state law, the Judicial Inquiry Board, and anyone can file a complaint against a judge, and they investigate. And by law, those are only made public if the Judicial Inquiry Board makes a finding that misconduct has occurred and brings formal charges against that judge with a separate body called the Illinois Courts Commission, which then holds sort of a quasi-trial to determine whether any discipline should be handed down.
Is there a reason why FOIA should not also extend to the case records?
When it comes to like FOIA-ing, for example, the information about people that are dealing with electronic monitoring, we get quite a bit of information, but we recently were denied information about race and gender, because I guess the Attorney General's office ruled that those are private categories. It's such for reasons of trying to identify disparities. Even within the FOIA statute and within practices of granting FOIAs, there are practices meant to make sure that people are not having overly identifiable information divulged. Case level data is useful and necessary in some points in order to achieve the transparency that we're hoping for.
Some judges provide written opinions for their decisions. And so in that vein, you wouldn't necessarily need to FOIA it to find out what the rationale is, because it should be somewhat tied to the law. But much like the standing orders, different judges do different things. I wouldn't mind seeing every judge issue some kind of opinion, then the public would know exactly why they made a ruling and how it ties back to the law.
The bigger picture, right? To see the trends, to see the full picture of what's happening, getting that sort of data about what's happening in the courts, not just the sort of individual case records, is really important.
I guess so. Just as a basic level, what's the bill number, and where exactly in the process is the bill?
I think we're being reasonable. The bill will go to Civil Judiciary Committee, because that's where civil issues go. This one is in the exec committee, and it's probably been flagged as a heater bill, a controversial bill. And so get them to vote out of rules to exec. At a minimum, if you reach out to your state reps, state senators, say, let's have a subject matter hearing. If everybody's afraid to vote on a bill, or ask concerns about voting on a bill, fine. But at least have a public hearing about it so we can air out some of the things we're talking about right now. But I think it's a step in the right direction. I genuinely believe that if most individuals in the public knew what we were talking about today, they would feel as though something besides where we are should be done.
Our bill had 80 proponents and only 4 opponents. And it's still, those forces behind the bill on the opposite side, it's so hard to get even the subject matter hearing. So numbers helps on that end, but if we end up getting a subject matter hearing, having you all there in the room is just tremendous.
If there's one thing that people today could take away from this panel, what would it be?
Please reach out to your state reps and state senators and let them know how important this is. And let's continue to galvanize behind the issue. I think, one of us says something that I hope struck a chord at least one person here. And if it did, then please don't sit on it. You have to take some action.